Hey, what's going on, Z Nation? Zaid here, ZSPN. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers as it concerns the buyout market and potential trades that the Lakers could make that is reasonable and basically realistic, if you will, of how the Lakers could improve the roster when it comes to adding on another big man or maybe potentially a shooter that could potentially help the Lakers boost their value, if you will, of a potential being like the number one team in the NBA to win a championship this year. That will be sealed into existence when it comes to the Lakers' chances of going for another repeat this year in 2021. So I just want to give you guys my thoughts and my opinions about it. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. So guys, the Lakers, as of right now, they are the second seat in the Western Conference, I believe. The number one seat goes to the Utah Jazz, and I believe the third seat goes to the LA Clippers. By the time I'm uploading this video, it could change hands, but still remains to be seen about that. But as a result, I mean, so far I've not been seeing a lot of reports like Bleacher Report, ESPN type of reports when it comes to the Lakers and their interest in certain players or certain buyout targets when it comes to certain players that could get bought out once March, 7th, approaches when it comes to the Lakers having any chance of improving their roster when it comes to possibly adding on some big men or possibly adding on a shooter. But it still remains to be seen who are those potential players that could potentially be in the buyout market, because it still remains to be seen, because certain teams might keep a player or may possibly use that particular player to trade them, or it still remains to be seen. We need to see what March, 7th or maybe possibly 14th. I mean, I'm not sure what the exact date is for last day of the trade deadline or potential buyouts that could potentially happen with certain teams. But so far, what it stands right now when it comes to the Lakers is that they have one roster spot, but they cannot do anything about it until the trade deadline approaches. That's when they could potentially add on a player for that last roster spot. And there's been some talks about possibly Quinn Cook being released, and maybe that will give the Lakers more of a leverage to possibly add on a potential player, maybe not just one, but maybe two players when it comes to the buyout market. But there's been potential players that are in the conversation for buyout. Obviously, we all know about the circumstances of Andre Drummond, even though I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers, they have a sort of value for him when it comes to trading him more than just buying him out, because if they do buy him out, they could potentially be I think he has like a big contract or something. I might be mistaken, but if any sort of team wants to trade for him, I don't really think they will probably do that, because what better way for them to get that particular player in the buyout market? So they're just going to wait on Andre Drummond when it comes to that. But you never know. A trade might happen when March approaches. But just want to put that out there when it comes to that sort of instance. And there's been some interest in the Lakers Nation type of world when it comes to the Lakers could potentially go after Andre Drummond in the buyout market, but still remains to be seen about that. And then you have Blake Griffin. Yes, that Blake Griffin, not the LA Clippers LA Griffin. This is the Detroit Pistons Blake Griffin. When it comes to his how he is now and how he's been the player that he is today. He's more of a rotation type of player now. He's basically one of those type of guys that is not the high flying dunking type of player that he is. He's not an all-star anymore, and some people might be looking at him when it comes to that sort of instance of possibly, trading him. But it's more likely they might get a buyout, but still remains to be seen about that when it comes to the Detroit Pistons and their situation with Blake Griffin. And they already put him on notice that he's not going to play any more games, and same goes for Andre Drummond. So, there's just a lot of things that the Lakers could potentially do when it comes to the buyout market. And personally, I think that's the best route for the Lakers when it comes to going after a player and possibly adding on some assets, or maybe possibly adding on some help when it comes to the Lakers, is through the buyout market, because that's the most easiest way for them to improve their roster. I mean, look what they did last season just last season when it came to signing Markieff Morris, and then there was Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith at one point, but that was a mistake from the Los Angeles Lakers' part, because he basically did not play any games when it comes to that. But the Lakers need to be more smart this time around when it comes to the buyout market and who they'll target. But yeah, there's just a lot of scenarios of where the Lakers could potentially go after. I mean, personally, if I had to pick, if somehow Andre Drummond gets bought out from the Cleveland Cavaliers, you have to go after him, because you need a big man. Marc Gasol, he's not really cutting it when it comes to his toughness and his ability and his speed. We can just notice that he's real slow when it comes to, being on the floor. He's a good shooter. He shoots threes. That's the good thing about, Marc Gasol. But you need that dominance. You need that a dominant defender, a dominant rebounder, and a guy who can give you like 11, maybe 16 points a game. I mean, that's what Andre Drummond has been averaging throughout his career. And so far, what I've been witnessing with the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's been averaging around almost 12 to 16 points a game. And when it comes to rebounding, he's a monster. He can grab up to 15 to 20 rebounds a game. I mean, this guy is a rebound sensation, and that's what the Lakers need when it comes to potentially the starting lineup, helping out Anthony Davis once he comes back, helping out LeBron James when he comes back. And then you look at all the options, that he's just the best option for the Los Angeles Lakers. But it kind of looks like that he might get traded, but still remains to be seen about that. And it's just has to be. It's going to take the Lakers quite some time to find out who will be the best player available in the buyout market for them to pursue. But if they do decide to trade, there is no way that they're going to trade for Andre Drummond or Blake Griffin, or any sort of player that's available for trade. I mean, so far what we've been seeing from interest, the Lakers have interest in Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, or just floating the idea. I mean, there's no reports about it. They're just rumors, updates, speculations. I mean, they are just out there for Laker fans to see and witness. But there is this one player, though, that I really think the Lakers could pull off a trade when it comes all said and done, and once March approaches. And that is, there's a guy in in Orlando with the Magic, and that is a guy by the name of Mo Bamba, or his full name is Mohamed Bamba. So or Bamba. Sorry, I just had to think about that. It kind of rhymes with Mamba, but that just want to put that out there. So yeah, there's that particular player. And the thing is, I think that's more of a realistic, trade for the Los Angeles Lakers to make. But it sort of depends on the price. The price is what the issue is. Even though I did say it's an easy or realistic trade, if the Lakers can get him on a low price, maybe possibly trade him for, I don't know, maybe a Quinn Cook, possibly a player that's not on a a non-guaranteed contract, or maybe possibly getting him for a second-round pick, or maybe something like that. I mean, there's just a lot of scenarios that the Lakers could do to get that particular player. He's a 7-footer, and he's a center, and he's a dominant center, and for his age, it kind of puts things in the kind of perspective of what the Lakers need, and that is a center. And I've been explaining, and I put out Andre Drummond and Mo there, and I just said, you know what? That's what the Lakers need. They need big men. And I refer to Blake Griffin at times because, even though he's not a center, he's a power forward-esque small forward type of player. I mean, he can be a good rebounder if he can, but judging by his career, he doesn't do well defensively. And when it comes to offense, he's not an explosive type of offensive attacker. He can. I mean, last time I checked, I think I heard that Blake Griffin hasn't dunked since 2019. So 2 years he hasn't been that dominant under the rim. So offensively, and it kind of puts things in kind of a perspective about the interest that the Lakers really do have when it comes to Blake Griffin. But I put this in this sort of sense for the Lakers if they do decide to pursue Blake Griffin. Yesterday, after the game, Frank Vogel just put out there that Anthony Davis will be out for at least 4 weeks. That's almost a month and a half, or just almost a month. So we could potentially not have Anthony Davis for at least a month, and that's respectfully so. I even said this: if Anthony Davis has something dealing with his Achilles or some sort of injury that's vital to the Lakers, reaching the playoffs and going for a championship this year, you need to make sure that he is 100, not just 100%, 110%, 115, 20, 25. I mean, all percentages when it comes to his health. He needs to be healthy. And I think a month, that's perfect. Maybe you should go for like a month and a half. So it's like that sort of instance. And I believe that's the route that the Lakers should consider when it comes to Anthony Davis and his health, and his injury. So, but that sort of instance, if Anthony Davis is going to be out for quite some time, and we're in March, and there's a certain player that's in the buyout market, like a Blake Griffin or an Andre Drummond, you have to pursue those particular players. You have to. I mean, because if you want the Lakers to have a better advantage seat-wise, you need to have a player that will help out LeBron, when it comes to the starting lineup, because so far, what I've been witnessing, I mean, yeah, the Lakers won one game without Anthony Davis, and so far they've been winning games without Anthony Davis for, they've been pretty good so far, but some of the Lakers on the Lakers squad have not been stepping up when it comes to their ability to really carry the load without Anthony Davis being on the floor, and he's going to be out for a month. So Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, hopefully Dennis Schroeder once he returns from the protocols of the health and safety protocols. He needs to step up. And there's certain players, Alex Caruso, everyone needs to step up and not just have LeBron James carry the load. So once we approach March and see what's on the buyout market and potential trades that could happen for the Lakers, I don't really think a trade will happen for the Lakers, but I won't be surprised if something does happen. So, but the buyout market is done for sure when it comes to the Lakers going after certain players that could be available. I mean, there's still a conversation of Ariza still being a potential buyout target for the Lakers if he gets bought out by the I believe it was Oklahoma. I think he's on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, he could potentially be a target for the Los Angeles Lakers. And there's plethora of players. I mean, if they go for a shooter, I mean, I'm not sure who's on the buyout market potentially that could be a shooter-wise, but the Lakers could pursue that particular option. But there's just a lot of priorities for the Lakers to go after when it comes to certain players that could help the Lakers offense and the defense as well. But personally, I think the Lakers should go after a center, or potentially, just somebody who could be a huge help for LeBron James once Anthony Davis does return. That's why I referred to Blake Griffin and that sort of aspect, because he could play multiple positions, but at the same time, he won't be in the starting lineup per se. But it kind of depends on Frank Vogel if he does see some help that could be a boost to the Lakers starting lineup if somehow Blake Griffin plays the power forward position and have Anthony Davis be the center. So there's just a lot of scenarios that the Lakers could go with this, and I really want to know your thoughts and your opinions about certain players that the Lakers should pursue when it comes to the buyout market, and who do you think they should pursue? Do you think they should see if somehow Andre Drummond, if he gets bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers and he, just becomes a free agent for the Lakers to go after in the buyout market? Or do you think Blake Griffin, once he gets in the buyout, or do you think a trade should happen with Mo Bamba? So, if he could potentially, maybe the Lakers could pursue him in that route and get him for a low price. Or if there's someone that I did not bring up that is a good asset, or maybe possibly a trade scenario that could happen, or maybe potentially a buyout player that is on the Lakers' radar that they should pursue, maybe a center, maybe a shooter. I really want to know your thoughts and your opinions about that in the comment section down below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Go Lakers. Take it easy, guys. Stay safe out there.